Так, ну я думаю, что на самом деле уже, по-моему, время начинать по моим часам. Так что мы начинаем нашу на сегодняшний день последнюю вечернюю секцию. И первый доклад Натальи Сердобольской «The use of genitive beyond the noun phrase in Udmurt».
Thank you. I'll speak English because I'm not sure, maybe there will be someone who will join us later and who would not understand Russian. But please feel free to ask questions in Russian if you prefer. So the talk is, as Fyodor has said, but maybe I should have named it looking for an NP with a genitive in Udmurt. The problem is as follows. We all know that the basic function of the genitive is usually the encoding of the possessor or modifier in an NP, like here in this first example, our mother from Besemyan Udmurt. However, we also know that in Udmurt, as well as generally in Permic languages, the genitive goes back to the L derivative suffix plus the locative marker, both denoting location. And in the modern language, it can be used also to denote location. And as I will try to show, it can be used beyond the NP. And it's very difficult to distinguish between the two constructions. First, what is interesting, it is that it can be used in a personal locative construction as it is defined in Michael Daniel's paper. The construction is something like at his, at my sister's in English. And in that case, it seems to be able to allow the use without a nominal head, like in the example here, the weather is fine to us, yeah, right? Like in Russian, у нас ясно. And we can see in this example that this genitive is contrasted with the locative adjunct Glazovым, right? Midam is one place and Glazovым is another place. They are contrasted. Another interesting context is the one here where the genitive encodes one of the verb arguments. The verb manage encodes its agent-like argument with the genitive. There's a noun kartoshka, right, which can be at first seem as to be the head of the noun phrase with the genitive, but it is not, because if we replace this potato stewing with an intransitive verb, we still get the genitive here. So if it was you managed to run well, it would be the same to not here. And the same with the verb wunene, be forgotten. It may seem that curious words are ahead of the noun phrase with the genitive, but if we replace it by an intransitive verb, the genitive remains and there's no apparent head in the construction. I assume that here the genitive is a verb argument. Then there's a nominal tautological construction with the particle uk. Leaves will be leaves with the genitive, and note there's no possessive here. Then the dative in ono also in some cases requires the genitive and doesn't allow a dative or nominative. So we have or need to stoke the bathhouse. And see, please pay attention that there is a possessive here on the word bathhouse, but it's of the third person singular, which does not coincide with the person features of the genitive. So I assume that it doesn't belong to the one and the same NP. Thus, there are constructions where the genitive cannot be considered as part of an NP, rather as a verb argument or a clausal adjunct. And even if it occurs with a noun that can be semantically related to it by a possessive relation, this noun either doesn't take the possessive suffix or takes a possessive suffix with different person number features, like in Mila Muchoze. So I want to raise the following questions. First, I will try to estimate the frequency of the genitive inside an NP and the genitive adjunct or verb argument and other constructions. Then the question is if we can differentiate between the two constructions in texts. Maybe the presence of a possessive suffix can be used as a diagnostics. Maybe the linear position of the head and the genitive, or something else. So I define here a canonical construction, which should be as follows. It should be like Milam Anaime in the first example. So there is a possessive marker agreeing with the genitive in person and number. The genitive is preposed to the head. The genitive is head adjacent, and the genitive is chosen dependent on the syntactic position of the head. So all these properties are actually the ones you can find in Udmurt grammars and other the grammars of other Permic varieties, and these are actually what we expect of Permic languages in general. So about the property number 4, that the genitive case is chosen depending on the syntactic position of the head. What I mean here is that there are two genitive cases, or actually the second genitive has been termed as also as possessive case or ablative in many works. But I use the label second genitive here, and it is used in constructions when the NP is in a direct object position. It is the marker lesh in the example, and it also goes back to the L derivative suffix plus elative, and it also has many other functions beyond the NP. So lesh is used with duos, right? And len, which is the first genitive in this example here, is used in all other positions. For example, if the NP is in an oblique position. So there are some problems with the canonical construction as defined above. First, we have a lot of examples when we do have the possessive and the genitive is chosen according to the rule, but they're not adjacent, and the genitive is postposed. Look at this example. Haled was from here. What does this means? And it is literally uttered as and Haled, and led from here was her, right? From our sides. But semantically, this seems to be an NP with a genitive modifier, but is it syntactically so? That's the question. Or we should say that adjacency and the linear position do not play a role. And another mismatch is the following. Sometimes we don't, we do find examples where the genitive is adjacent to the possessor and preposed, but what we see is no possessive and the mismatch in the genitive choice. Like in this example, we tested our oath in the training unit. So we have genitive first instead of genitive 2. Присяга is in the direct object position, which we could have expected genitive 2 here. And there's no possessive on присяга. So I assume that this is an example of a personal locative construction, as the one illustrated above. Like to us, it is fine weather. So that literally this example means to us, we took oath in the training unit, and the oath is not does not belong to the NP with the genitive. However, as you can see, this difference is not so easy to be understood, because Miliam and Присяга are adjacent, and the linear order is observed. So another example of this kind is the following. My baking tray does not stand straight. So my baking tray is not lifted to one side, literally. Here you also see the possessive mismatch, right, in person, and that's why I assume that here the genitive is encodes the agent in the resultative construction, while the backing tray does not form an NP with it. And the same in the second example, where we don't have any possessive marker on floor. So let us now try this, try to test this based on corpus analysis. So I annotated I annotated 300 examples with genitive 1 and 169 sentences with genitive 2. So with genitive 2, the examples are much rarer in general in corpus. And the following parameters were used. So the type of genitive, presence of the possessive, now genitive mismatch, which we already saw above, possessive mismatch, syntactic position of the possessee, the semantics of the possessive relation, linear order, adjacency, person, number, type of the possessee, can be a pronoun, a common noun, relational noun, construction type, or presence of other modifiers of the possessee. What you find is roughly the following picture for genitive 2. You see that the percentage of verb arguments and the NPs is pretty much the same, but there's a lot of problematic cases which are indicated with green, light green here, where additional syntactic information is used to differentiate between the two constructions. So, and there's a lot of unambiguous constructions where the genitive does not form an NP with any other, with any nominal head in the sentence. For example, where it is an adjunct, with the meaning ablative or cause, for example. These meanings are well known and already tested in the literature, so I'll just briefly name them. Then it's also used to mark the standard in comparative constructions. Animals are stronger than birds. Then as argument of postpositions, sole chevalot before that. Then it is also used as to encode arguments of a number of verbs, like fear, forbid, prohibit, many others. And what is interesting, that it's also used with depriving of possession. And with these verbs, we cannot potentially disambiguate between NP use or verb argument use, because if we steal something from somebody, actually we took something belonging to this person, and the possessive relation is also observed. So semantically, they are both the possessors, and these genitives are both possessors and verb arguments. And additional argumentation is needed to differentiate between the two. And another problem is the material meaning. So sometimes, it is also well known that the genitive 2 denotes material. Like in this example, we make levain out of rye flour. But is it really a verb argument here, or should it be analyzed syntactically as we make rye flour as levain? It's a question, right? And an argument, a good argumentation can be the absence of the possessive, which we often find in these constructions. So if we don't see the possessive, presumably this means that this levain does not form the NP with rye flour. But you can see that the word order is the same as in canonical NP structures. So with the verb know, we don't expect the genitive to be a verb argument, like in a sentence, he knows everyone's names. And this is clearly an NP, everyone's names. But the word order is the same as in the first sentence. Like we have the possessee on the left, then the verb, and then we have the genitive. So it seems like the linear order and the adjacency does not serve as good arguments for differentiating between the two constructions. Now about the first genitive. So the distribution is as follows. You see that the vast majority is covered by the NP. Then we have debitive construction, the intensifier use, the verb arguments, experiential, personal locative, the construction of the meaning want. Yeah, thank you. Then we have predicative possession of two types. I will return to it later. Resultative, and the last is RLP, which is a very interesting case, actually demonstrating all the canonical features. So the problem with the personal locative is, as I have said above, the differentiation between NPs and personal locatives. For example, here, the speaker says, you're talking about what happened in Moscow, Leningrad, but here in our places, so we have here at us, literally, in Shamardan, they have sold the center, right, the complex. And we have the possessive mismatch, which shows us that the complex does not form an NP with the reflexive genitive. Okay, so now the genitive is also used to encode agent in experiential structures. And in the resultative, we have also already seen some examples above. Then I pass to very briefly to the consideration of the canonical construction features. And I think I will use some time for questions. About the presence of the possessive, you can see that actually the possessive is absent in about 20% of cases, a bit more frequent in predicative possession constructions, which are labeled here habeo constructions. I will explain below. Right. And there's a striking difference between relational phrases and locative, personal locative. So in personal locative, we don't have the possessive in more than half of the cases, and that's why I assume that they do not include an NP. And in the following tables, it's shifted to the left, so to the left of this column, where I have the constructions that are not clearly NPs. And we can see an interesting difference between NPs and relational noun phrases. So in relational noun phrases, the possessive is most, is most often here. It's most often present, and it's absent only in 4% of cases. So this shows that relational noun constructions are actually canonical constructions. Under relational noun constructions, I mean here constructions with nouns like side, top, bottom, etc. So I skip this. Now, the linear order does not seem to play a good, a relevant role in the distribution of the possessive, so it's not correlated with the presence of the possessive. However, note that in relational noun constructions, it's always as expected. So the genitive is most often preposed to the head. Now, what is interesting is the adjacency feature. This is in relational phrases, the genitive is head adjacent in 100% of cases. This cell here. Only in half of the case in predicative possession, and 12% in noun phrase, it is not adjacent, right? So comparing the predicative possession and the nominal possession, we can see that for nominal possession, the adjacency does not play a role. It's nearly the same percentage everywhere. But in predicative possession, we see the relevance, the significance here, that the adjacency correlates with the absence, presence of the possessive marker. And this distribution is significant according to the chi-square test. So if there's no possessive, then if the genitive is adjacent to the possessee, then actually the possessive is most often present. Thus, it means that the predicative possession structures must be divided into two subtypes: those where the genitive is head adjacent and those that are not. And presumably there might be some semantic difference, but this has to be studied yet. Now about another number of features: mismatches in case and person number of the possessive. So the genitive mismatch is found in locative, debitive, and verb argument constructions, and the possessive mismatch in locative, debitive, experiential, resultative, also in predicative possession structures. And it suggests that in these constructions, the genitive does not form an NP with the possessee, or maybe does not always form the NP with the possessee. So maybe in some cases it does. Now I come to the conclusions. So there are a number of constructions where the genitive is beyond the NP, right? It does not form an NP with a nominal head. They listed here. Now there's another construction, genitive plus relational noun of the type side, top, bottom, etc. And this construction yields to all the morphosyntactic requirements for the canonical structure. And the NPs with other nouns, like ordinary nouns, right? And the NPs in nominal predicate possession structures are structurally ambiguous. So the predicate possessions constructions fall into two groups, depending on adjacency. And structures that look like NPs presumably also include personal locatives, which don't require the possessive and also allow the genitive mismatch. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. We have 5 minutes for questions, please. You can put your questions into chat, or I'll try to look if it's possible to see, or just start to tell your question. Okay, well, there are no questions now, no, but there are? Yeah.
If I may.
Yes, sorry. Please.
Natasha, a slightly naive question. First, do you think that some of the uses of the genitive in Udmurt might be a context influence of the variety of Russian constructions with U plus genitive? And second, just a comprehension question. Many functions listed for genitive 2 are typical for ablative markers. And I think that this is actually the same marker that Yedegarova and some other authors gloss as ablative.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I wonder what are the motivations for the tradition to count as a second genitive? Is it just the possessive predication or something else?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. So about the Russian influence, I'm not, I haven't worked on diachrony, but I presume that it is usually, there had been some point of view that it was vice versa, that actually that the Russian U plus genitive construction was influenced by the neighboring Finno-Ugric languages, but I'm not sure actually. I think, yeah, but yes, it looks like the same, and it looks like they both borrow features one from the other, and maybe. But okay, as for the second question, yeah, I have said it that in the first slide about the ablative, about this term, but the motivation is that we also have the genitive in all cases when the noun phrase is in the direct object position, even if there's no ablative or malefactive or some negative semantics behind it. So like, he repaired my car would be still with the second genitive, and no, what is important, it is that no other alternative is available. So this is the basic expression of the possessor in direct object position. So actually, looking at my diagram, we can see that both are equally, I'll return to sharing the screen, that both, both are equally frequent, right? So both terms are well, are welcome, right? But of course, yeah, I have already said that this genitive 2 is described in the literature as derived from the relative marker, and that's all the functions like negative stimulus and so on.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have time for one short question. If there are no questions, can I ask a short question? It's terminological. I always thought that the verb arguments, nominal verb arguments, are also noun phrases, but you oppose noun phrases to verbal arguments. What's the reason for this?
Well, actually, it's just a short term I should have written. The genitive inside an NP with a nominal head, or the genitive which is itself a verbal argument, while there's no nominal head considered. So, like if you say, I'm afraid of the wolf, right? That of the wolf is also takes the second genitive, and you don't think that you're afraid of something belonging to the wolf, right? So semantically, the genitive itself is the verbal argument. And when I say NP, this is just a short term, meaning that that the genitive is the modifier inside an NP, including some nominal head.
Okay, thank you very much.